You ever wonder what $85 million in family betrayal looks like? I'm Megan Sullivan. And 3 years ago, I gave up everything, my career, my dreams, my whole life, to take care of my father after his stroke. While my sister Brooke was off partying in Paris, I was the one learning to give him insulin shots at 3 a.m. I was the one who memorized his medication schedule. I pretty much became his physical therapist. 8 weeks ago, when Dad was finally back on his feet, Brooke flew home. And yesterday, he gave her everything, the company, the properties, the whole legacy. My reward, $50,000 and a pat on the head. But here's the thing about being the invisible one. People forget you're watching. They forget you're learning. And they definitely forget you might have your own plans. If you're watching this, go ahead and subscribe and let me know where you're from. This is the story of how a single letter changed everything. 3 years earlier, I was on the edge of something huge. The Dubai Marina Complex, a 40-story development that would have launched my career into the big leagues. The clients had asked for me by name after they saw my work on the Boston Harbor Pavilion. Megan Sullivan, they'd said, she gets how to make steel and glass breathe. Then I got the call. It was Dad's assistant. She could barely speak. Your father? A stroke. Mass General. It's critical. I was on the next flight out. My laptop was still open to the Dubai blueprints. What the doctors said was grim. He'd need round-the-clock care for at least 18 months. Physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech therapy, all of it. A full recovery, if it even happened, would take years. Mom had passed away 5 years before. Brooke was in Paris working for a PR firm, or as she called it, building her brand. That just left me. I'll handle it, I told the family lawyer, signing power of attorney with hands that should have been sketching skylines. While Brooke was posting Instagram stories from Fashion Week, I was learning the difference between two kinds of blood thinners. She'd send 5-minute video calls on Sundays. Kiss Daddy for me. While I was pulling 70-hour weeks just managing his care, his company's emails, and trying to keep my own career from dying with late-night freelance work. The Dubai clients waited 3 weeks. Then they hired someone else. But here's what nobody knew, not even Dad. As he was lying there, slowly getting better, relearning to speak one word at a time. I have a master's in architecture from MIT. I was top of my class, the youngest person ever to win the Emerging Designer Award from the Boston Society of Architects. Turns out invisible daughters tend to have invisible achievements. Then 8 weeks ago, everything shifted. Dad was finally walking on his own. His speech was 90% back. The company was stable. I'd been handling the mail, keeping the board updated, and holding on to our key clients. Then Brooke arrived. She waltzed into the house with her Louis Vuitton luggage and a perfect tan hugging Dad and a cloud of Chanel No. 5. Daddy, you look amazing. I knew you were a fighter. Within a few hours, the story completely changed. All of a sudden, Brooke's strategic decision to stay in Paris was all about protecting the family's international connections. It was like she was never gone. Her 5-minute video calls suddenly turned into constant emotional support from overseas. Brooke just gets the business in the world, Dad announced at dinner that first night, while I was serving the low-sodium meal I'd spent 3 years perfecting. She's been networking with European investors. I watched her nod like she knew exactly what he was talking about. Funny, 'cause I'd seen her LinkedIn. She was a junior account coordinator at a firm for fashion bloggers. The board meeting invite came 3 days later. I want Brooke to attend, Dad told me. She needs to learn the family business. What about, I started. You've done enough, Megan. Time to let your sister step up. Done enough. 3 years of my life. And it was just a favor that was over. That night I found Brooke in Dad's study. She was taking pictures of herself behind his desk. This lighting is perfect, she mumbled, fixing her ring light. My followers will love the whole woman in business angle. She looked up, caught, and then just shrugged. You don't mind, do you? I mean, you've never been interested in the corporate stuff. I smiled, said nothing, and I didn't forget it. But what happened next made those 3 years feel like nothing. The real betrayal was just getting started. The family meeting was at 4 p.m. on a Tuesday. Dad sat at the head of the dining table, Brooke to his right, me to his left. His lawyer, Michael Harrison, laid out the documents like he'd done it 1,000 times. "I've made some decisions about the future," Dad began. His voice was strong again, certain. "Sullivan Development Group needs fresh leadership, young leadership. Brooke has shown me she has the vision to take us forward." The words felt like ice. "I'm leaving her the company, all of it. The commercial properties, the Seaport portfolio, the Back Bay buildings, the Cambridge Tech Park, the residential holdings, everything. $85 million in assets. The empire our grandfather started with one small office building in 1962. Megan," he continued, not even looking at me, "you'll receive $50,000. I know you've never been interested in business, and this will help you pursue your hobbies." Hobbies. My architecture degree, my license, my career. Brooke reached over and squeezed my hand. "You understand, right? You're just not cut out for this world. But don't worry, I'll always take care of you." Thomas pushed a document across the table. "There's also a non-compete clause, standard family business practice. It prevents any family member from working with Sullivan Development competitors or clients for 5 years. But I'm not," I started. "Sign here." Dad interrupted. He tapped the paper. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be." 3 years of sacrifice, and I was worth less than his car collection, less than the wine cellar, less than the yacht he hadn't used since his stroke. I looked at the pen in my hand, at Brooke's smug smile, at Dad's impatient look. "When do you need this signed by for the shareholders meeting?" 3 days. 3 days. 3 days to sign away everything, or 3 days to change everything. The next morning, Brooke was already in Dad's office when I brought in his medicine. She'd replaced Mom's photo with one of herself at a podium. It was photoshopped, I could tell, but I said nothing. "The announcement goes out tomorrow," she said, not looking up from her laptop. "I've hired Preston PR to handle the media strategy. A new generation of leadership for Sullivan Development." Sounds good, right? The shareholders meeting is still 3 days away. "Oh, that's just for show." Dad already told the board. I even got a call from Daniel Brooks at Pinnacle congratulating me. She finally looked up. "You did sign the papers, didn't you?" "I'm reviewing them." Her smile got real tight. "Megan, don't make this hard. This is what's best for everyone. You're not cut out for this world. You're too soft, too trusting. Remember that contractor who overcharged us on Dad's renovation? I had to step in and fix it." I remembered. I also remembered finding the real invoices later. She'd pocketed the difference. 72 hours, I said quietly. That's the time Dad gave me. "Fine, but the press release is going out anyway." "Oh, and I'm going to need all the office keys, the passwords, and the client files you've been handling. Can't have any confusion about who's in charge." Later that afternoon, Dad called me into his study. "Your sister tells me you still haven't signed." "I'm taking the time you gave me." "Megan," his voice had that CEO tone, the one he used on employees right before he fired them. "Don't embarrass yourself or me. You've never cared about the business. Sign the papers, take the money, and maybe finally do something with your little sketches." Little sketches. I just smiled, nodded, and walked out without another word. Something was about to change. Change. Everything was about to change. If you've ever felt invisible, even after giving your family everything, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. This story is about to prove that your worth isn't decided by the people who refuse to see it. Comment below. What would you do with 72 hours to get back at them? Keep watching, because what Megan did next changed everything. That night, alone in my old childhood room, the same one where I drew up my first building designs at 12 years old, I opened my laptop and checked my private email. It was the one for Q. Sullivan Architecture, LLC, the company I'd started 2 years ago, doing freelance work between Dad's therapy sessions. And there it was, the subject line I had been waiting for. Congratulations, Pinnacle Industries Headquarters, Project Award. My hands were shaking when I opened it. Dear Miss Sullivan, it said, after a full review, the board has unanimously chosen your proposal for our new headquarters. Your new ideas on sustainable design and fitting into the city went above and beyond all expectations. The $45 million contract is attached. We're excited to announce this at our press conference on March 15th. Best regards, Daniel Smith, CEO, Pinnacle Industries. Daniel Smith. The same man who called Brooke to congratulate her on taking over Sullivan Development. The same man whose company, Sullivan Development, had been trying to land a deal with for 2 years. I read the email again, then I checked the attachment. It was all there. Signed contracts, project timelines, the official announcement draft. They didn't choose me because I was a Sullivan. They chose me in spite of it. My submission was just under my initials, MSA, so it was totally anonymous until the final round. For 2 years, I'd been building my own portfolio. Small jobs at first, a boutique hotel remodel, a community center, offices for a tech startup. Each one was a lesson, another stepping stone. But Pinnacle was the giant leap. I grabbed my phone and found Jennifer Collins' number, the lawyer who helped me start MSA. I called her. Jennifer, it's Megan. I need to ask you about non-compete clauses. I wanted to know if they still count for family members who've been officially cut off. She answered right away. They don't. Your father made one huge mistake. The non-compete is only for Sullivan employees, not family members. He's disowned. Perfect. Jennifer Collins' office is on the 40th floor of One Financial Center, with a view of the harbor where I designed my first award-winning building. She poured us some coffee from a French press. No cheap office coffee maker there. She spread the Sullivan papers out on her glass desk. Your father's lawyer is Michael Harrison, she said, looking over the documents. He's a good lawyer, but old-fashioned. This non-compete is rock solid for employees and partners. She looked up at me, her eyes sharp. But you're not one of them. The second you sign this paper giving up your inheritance, you're officially out of the family business. So I can operate freely, better than freely. You can compete directly with them. She pulled something up on her tablet. I also did some research. Did you know I went up against your father once about 5 years ago, a property issue? I didn't. He tried to underpay a contractor who did amazing work. I represented the contractor. We won. She smiled. Your father called me a shark in lipstick. I had business cards made. I laughed. It was the first real laugh I'd had in weeks. Here's what I think we should do, Jennifer went on. Sign their papers, take the $50,000, then announce MSA when it'll make the biggest splash. When is that shareholders meeting? March 15th. 200 people at the Ritz-Carlton. It's where Sullivan Development has made every big announcement for 30 years. She took notes. The media will already be there. The board, the investors. Everyone your father cares about more than his own family. I said, it feels so calculating. No, Megan, you know what's calculating. Giving you $50,000 for 3 years of free labor. This is justice with interest. We spent the next 2 hours planning out a timeline. We planned every single detail with a backup for everything. One more thing, Jennifer said as I was getting up to leave. That Pinnacle contract. I know Daniel Brooks. He doesn't just hand out jobs like that. You earned this. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. Thank me after March 15th. That night, I sat at my desk, the same one where I'd spent so many hours managing my dad's recovery, his emails, his entire life. I opened a new document. Dear Father, by the time you read this, everything will have changed. For 3 years, it's like I was invisible to you. The daughter who took care of your meds, your therapy appointments, and all your business mail while you got better. The one you decided was worth $50,000, which is less than you spent on Brooke's car. But here's what you never knew. Every building you've raved about in the last 2 years, like the Harborside Boutique Hotel, the Innovations Lab in Kendall Square, the Phoenix Community Center, I designed all of them under M. Sullivan Architecture, the company I built while you were recovering. Today, while you're introducing Brooke as the one to take over, I'll be introducing myself as the lead architect for the new Pinnacle Industries headquarters. Yep, the $45 million project Sullivan Development wanted for 2 years. They chose me, Father, not because I'm your daughter, but because I'm better. Here are the family keys, just like you asked. I signed your papers. The $50,000 will cover my office lease for a year. Kinda ironic. Don't you think I learned everything about business watching you, especially what not to do? Your invisible daughter, Megan. P.S. Brooke might want to Google Pinnacle Industries before the meeting. They're not a software company. I printed 3 copies. One for Dad sent by a courier to show up during his speech. Another for my own records. And one for Jennifer Collins as insurance in case they try to sue me. Then I wrote a second letter, a shorter one, a kinder one to my mom. I told her I finally found my voice. I sealed it and put it in my jewelry box right next to her wedding ring. 3 envelopes. They were either going to change everything or destroy it all. In less than 72 hours, I'd know. The whole extended family was packed into the mansion's dining room, acting like it was already a party. Uncle James flew in from Seattle. Aunt Victoria was wearing her judgmental stare like it was expensive jewelry. Even cousin Derek, who got kicked out of 3 colleges, was there in a suit that cost more than most people's rent. So proud of Brooke, Aunt Victoria cooed, air kissing my sister. Finally, someone with the real head for business in the next generation. I signed the papers at 11:47 a.m. My signature was steady and clear. Dad didn't even look at me. He was already making a toast with Uncle James to the future of Sullivan Development. Brooke had a speech ready. Of course she did. Family means everything to me. She started putting a hand on Dad's shoulder. These last 8 weeks watching Daddy recover have really shown me what true leadership is. It's about vision. It's about courage. It's about knowing when to take charge. 8 weeks. She'd been here for 8 weeks. Megan, she continued, turning to me with that fake PR smile. Thanks for keeping things tidy while I was building our international presence. Your organizational skills have been a huge help. Organizational skills. I had just renewed 3 contracts that saved Sullivan Development $4 million. But sure, organizational skills. Smile, Megan, Uncle James shouted, holding up his phone. At least try to look happy for your sister. I smiled. I even raised my glass of water. I didn't trust myself with champagne. I made a toast. To Brooke, may she get exactly what she deserves. Everyone laughed, completely missing the threat in my voice that Jennifer Collins would have heard instantly. Derek cornered me near the kitchen. Tough break, cuz. But hey, not everyone's cut out for the big leagues. You still doing your little drawings? Something like that. 2 days until the shareholders' meeting. 2 days until their whole world shattered like cheap glass. The next 36 hours were planned down to the minute. Jennifer Collins had put a team together for me. A publicist who was an expert in corporate announcements. A design director for my presentation. Even a stylist. You're not just announcing a contract, Rebecca the publicist explained. You're launching a brand. Monsieur Sullivan Architecture needs us to look completely professional and solid from day one. The presentation looked amazing. 15 slides showing off 5 years of my work that no one knew I did. The Harborside Hotel. Sullivan Development had tried to get that job and failed. The Innovations Lab. Dad had praised it at a board meeting, having no clue his invisible daughter had designed every last inch of it. Daniel Brooks called himself to confirm. Miss Sullivan, our entire board is coming to the announcement. He said, this is the biggest contract we've ever awarded. We want to do it right. Will you be mentioning Sullivan Development? I told him, only to note that we reviewed their proposal and found it wasn't good enough. Meanwhile, the official contract was getting notarized. Jennifer insisted on having 3 of everything digital certificates, physical seals, and video confirmation. She said, "Your father will look for any crack to slip through. We're not giving him one." The stylist picked a black Armani suit for me. "Powerful, but not aggressive," she said. "You want to look like success, not revenge." "Isn't success the best revenge, though?" I said, adjusting the jacket. "The kind that's so elegant, no one can even call it revenge." That evening, I did a final run-through with Jennifer. I had every word memorized. Every transition was smooth. "You're ready," she said. "Just remember tomorrow, you're not asking for recognition. You're taking it." That night, I drove past the Sullivan Development offices. The lights were on in Dad's corner suite. Was he in there getting Brooke's introduction ready, writing his speech about legacy and vision? In 24 hours, he'd understand what 3 years of being invisible had really cost him. March 14th. At 6 p.m., Dad called. "Megan, I expect you at the meeting tomorrow. United Family Front." "Of course," I said. "And wear something appropriate, not one of your artist outfits." I told him I have something picked out. "Good. Brooke's announcement needs to go perfectly. The Journal is sending their real estate editor. Bloomberg, too. This is Sullivan Development's moment." "Oh, it'll certainly be memorable," I said. He paused. "You're taking this well. I'm glad you finally accepted reality." Reality. If only he knew. Brooke had posted 17 Instagram stories in the last hour. Her dress fitting her hair appointment, a champagne toast with friends captioned, "CEO era loading." The conference room at the Ritz was all set up with Sullivan Development logos on every single surface. I scheduled the courier service for 2:45 p.m. The letter would arrive at the exact moment Dad reached the peak of his introduction speech. Jennifer had a backup courier on standby just in case. "Nervous," Jennifer texted. "Terrified," I replied. "Good, use it." I couldn't sleep. Instead, I just walked through my apartment, the one I'd barely lived in for 3 years, and stared at my diplomas. MIT Boston Architectural College, the AIA award I'd won 6 months ago while Dad was learning how to walk again. Tomorrow, one of 2 things would happen. Either I'd burn the bridge with my family forever, or I'd finally build something real from the ashes of their disrespect. My phone buzzed. It was Daniel Brooks. "See you tomorrow." We're all very excited to work with someone who understands that buildings aren't just about profit. They're about people. I thought about Dad's philosophy. Buildings are assets, nothing more. In 12 hours, one of us would lose everything. I was betting it wasn't going to be me. Are you ready for the moment when 3 years of silence becomes the loudest thing in the room? Before we get to the meeting, that changed everything. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. This next part is exactly why you should never underestimate the quiet ones. Drop a comment. Do you think Megan should have warned them? Let's see what happens when being prepared finally meets the perfect opportunity. The Ritz-Carlton's Grand Ballroom was basically Sullivan Development's home turf. For 30 years, every big deal got announced right under those crystal chandeliers. The room could fit 300, but the 200 people here today still made it feel like the center of Boston's business world. I showed up at 2:30, found a seat in the 5th row, close enough to see it all but far enough back that nobody would spot me. Brooke was by the podium, looking incredible in a red Valentino dress, practicing her smile for the cameras. Dad was working the crowd like his stroke never even happened, shaking hands with the board, laughing with investors. I heard him call out to Kevin Anderson from Anderson Construction. "Heard you're passing the torch today," Kevin said. "Time for new blood?" Dad shot back, pulling Brooke closer. "You remember my daughter, right?" "The one from Paris?" "How exciting," Kevin said. "And Megan? She's around somewhere." I saw Daniel Brooks and 3 of the Pinnacle board members at a table in the corner. Daniel caught my eye and gave me a little nod. The briefcase sitting next to him had copies of our contract. At exactly 2:55, Dad walked up to the podium. The room went dead silent. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming on this huge day. For 60 years, Sullivan Development has been the gold standard in Boston real estate. Today, we start a new chapter. He started in on a speech I could have written in my sleep. Legacy, vision, innovation. The same old corporate garbage. It was all so familiar, so expected, so safe. It's my great pleasure to introduce the next CEO of Sullivan Development. My daughter. Right then, a courier walked in a side door. His uniform was sharp. His timing was perfect. Mr. Sullivan, urgent delivery. Need a signature. Dad frowned but kept his cool. My daughter? Brooke Sullivan. The courier got to the stage just as everyone started clapping. Everything was about to change. The courier didn't back down. Mr. Sullivan, I need your signature. It's a time-sensitive delivery. Dad's jaw got tight. 200 people watched him struggle. Saying no would make him look weak. Saying yes would ruin Brooke's big moment. One moment, he said into the mic, and signed real quick. The courier gave him the envelope and walked out. Dad glanced at it, probably thinking it was some legal papers, but his face completely changed when he saw the handwriting. My handwriting. He started to shove it in his pocket, but Brooke was already starting her speech. Thank you, Daddy. This company means everything to our family. Dad opened the letter. I just watched his eyes scan the first line, then the second. His face went from confused to pale to bright red in about 10 seconds. Brooke kept on talking. She had no clue. As you all know, Sullivan Development has been going after some big contracts. The Pinnacle headquarters, for example. What do you mean you're taking the Pinnacle contract? Dad's voice cut right through her speech. The microphone picked up every word. The room just froze. Brooke turned confused. Daddy? He was reading it out loud now, like he couldn't even stop himself. They chose me father. Not because I'm your daughter, but because I'm better. Is this some kind of joke? Brooke reached for the letter. Dad pulled it back, his eyes finally finding me in the crowd. Megan, what is this? I stood up slowly, and every head in the room turned my way. It's my resignation from the family business, I said, and the whole room went quiet. That's when Daniel Brooks stood up from his table. Maybe I can clear things up, he said. Brooks' perfect smile just shattered. Who are you? She asked. Daniel Brooks, CEO of Pinnacle Industries, the company you just mentioned, he smiled. But just so you know, Miss Sullivan, we're not a software company. The room started buzzing with whispers. Brooke tried to recover, but it was a mess. Of course, Pinnacle Industries, the technology firm. We've been working closely with them on their new sustainable tech. Daniel Brooks just raised his eyebrows. We're a biomed company, Miss Sullivan. We build cancer treatment centers. The whispering got louder. I saw James Morrison lean over to his partner. She doesn't even know who they are. Daddy, Brooke hissed into the hot mic. Fix this. But Dad was just staring at the letter, reading the part about the buildings I designed. His buildings? The ones he always bragged about in board meetings? The Harborside Hotel? He said real slow. You designed the Harborside Hotel. Among others, I said. Brooke snatched the mic. This is just a big misunderstanding. Megan has always helped the family business, you know, in her own small way. If she's done some freelance sketching, but Daniel Brooks cut her off. Miss Sullivan, Megan Sullivan, gave us a proposal that's going to completely change how biomed facilities are designed. The way she combines patient care with research labs, it's groundbreaking. But she's not even a real architect, Brooke shot back. I just pulled out my phone and connected it to the projector Brooke set up for herself. My credentials lit up the screen. Master's from MIT, licensed architect, AIA, emerging architect, award for 2024. I've been a licensed architect for 7 years. I said, you just never asked. The reporter from the journal was typing like crazy. The Bloomberg photographer was snapping pictures of everything. Uncle James stood up. William, what's going on? Dad finally spoke up. Megan, we need to talk about this in private. No, I said. You picked this place, these people, this moment. Let's finish what you started. The color just drained from Brooke's face. Pinnacle was supposed to be our biggest contract. Was Daniel Brooks confirmed? Past tense. I walked up to the podium slow and steady, the same way I brought Dad his meds for 3 years. Calm, steady, like it was always going to happen. Good afternoon. I'm Megan Sullivan, founder and lead architect of M. Sullivan Architecture. The screen behind me changed to my company's logo. It was clean and modern, nothing like the old stuffy crest for Sullivan Development. For the last 5 years, while I was taking care of my father, I've been building my own company. I designed sustainable buildings that put people first, not profits. I started clicking through my slides. Each project popped up showing the awards it won and the difference it made. Everyone in the audience leaned in. 3 days ago, my father decided my contribution to this family was worth $50,000. Today, I'm here to announce that my company, MSA, has just landed the Pinnacle Industries headquarters project. It's a $45 million contract that's going to create over 200 jobs and set a whole new standard for medical buildings. The contract popped up on the screen. Signed, sealed, no arguing with it. Dad stepped up. Megan, this is way out of line. What's out of line? I said, keeping my cool, expecting someone to just give up 3 years of their life for nothing, and then tossing them aside with less than you'd pay some kid right out of college. But we're your family, he protested. Exactly. And that just makes it worse. I turned back to the room. Sullivan Development loves to talk about its traditional values. Well, QSA builds on something different. Innovation, sustainability. And the crazy idea that buildings should actually be for the people inside them, not just the guys who own them. Daniel Brooks stood up. Pinnacle is proud to be partnering with Q Sullivan Architecture. We think Megan is the future of design. A reporter from the Journal raised her hand. Ms. Sullivan, are you saying Sullivan Development is behind the times? I stared right at my dad. I'm saying that sometimes a daughter no one sees is the one who spots the things everyone else misses. Like big opportunities. Let me show you what all that invisible work looks like, I said and clicked to the next slide. A detailed timeline filled the screen. 3 years. Every project I touched, every building I designed, every deal I saved while Dad was getting better. The Harborside Hotel renovation. You know, Sullivan Development's biggest hit of 2023. I designed that one between his physical therapy appointments. The Kendall Square Innovation Lab finished that while juggling 16 different doctors. And the Phoenix Community Center. I drew up the plans for that during the 43 nights I slept at the hospital. Each building popped up with its awards, all the good press, how much money it made. You might recognize a few of these. I kept going as more Sullivan Development properties showed up on the screen. The Seaport Towers renovation, the one that saved $2 million in environmental fees. That was my sustainable design. The Back Bay restoration, the one the Globe called architectural poetry. Yeah, I sent in those plans under a fake name. While Brooke was off in Paris, Kevin Anderson got to his feet. William, did you know any of this? Dad's silence said it all. Daniel Brooks opened his briefcase, pulling out a thick report. For the record, he started, Megan's proposal for Pinnacle wasn't just better than Sullivan Development's. It wasn't even in the same league. She gets something fundamental, that spaces for healing have to be designed by someone who actually knows what it's like to heal. The screen changed again. A video started to play. My old clients, one by one, all talking about the work I did, work they had no idea was tied to the Sullivan name. Megan Sullivan designed our boutique hotel while taking care of her dad full-time. Her dedication was just incredible. That was David Park from Harborside Properties. We made sure to ask for her for phase 2. You don't find talent like that every day. Jennifer Martinez from Innovation Partners. Brooke tried to jump in one last time. This is corporate espionage. She used inside information. That's when Jennifer Collins stood up. I'm Megan's lawyer. Everything she did was by the book, including her right to compete after she was cut out of the will. Let's talk numbers, I said, clicking to the finance disallied. Since for some people in this room, that's all that matters. The contract details lit up the screen clear as day. $45 million over 3 years. We'll handle the design, consulting, and management for a 500,000 square foot facility. And that's just for starters. The next slide showed the numbers. We're talking 212 permanent jobs and an $18 million impact on the economy every year, plus a top-tier platinum certification that'll save Pinnacle $3 million a year in running costs. I stopped and let that sink in. Sullivan Development's proposal? I read it while Dad was recovering. They only offered 150 jobs and a gold certification. What's the difference? They just see buildings. I see people. This is ridiculous. Dad finally blew up. You can't possibly handle a project this big. I handled your recovery, I said quietly. 16 specialists, 12 different meds. Jiao Shang. 3 kinds of therapy, daily blood tests, fighting with the insurance company, and keeping the board updated, all while still running my own firm. I think I can handle 1 building. Just then, the reporter from Bloomberg stood up. Miss Sullivan, what do you expect to make in the first year? $8 million to start, I said. With bonuses, it could hit 12. And what about Sullivan Development's revenue last year? I just smiled. You should ask their new CEO. I'm sure she knows those numbers by heart. Brooke was just frozen at the podium, her speech all crumpled up in her hand. Just for some context, Daniel added, standing up again, Pinnacle was supposed to be 15% of Sullivan Development's expected revenue for next year. Or I guess I should say was. That number's going to need an update. The room just exploded. Board members were all over Dad. Investors were grabbing their phones. The press was pushing to get closer. One more thing, I shouted over the chaos. My company MSA is hiring. Anyone who wants to build something new, instead of just propping up something old, should apply. And just like that, 3 of Sullivan Development's people stepped right up. I gathered my things with the same care I used to sort Dad's pills for the last 3 years. No hurry, no drama, just business. Before I leave, I said as the room got quiet again, I want to thank my father. Dad's head shot up and I saw a little flicker of hope in his eyes. You taught me that business is all about leverage, about timing, about knowing what you're worth, and making sure everyone else does too. I paused. You also taught me what not to do, how not to treat people, how not to measure success, and those lessons were just as important. Then I turned to Brooke. Good luck with Sullivan Development. I'm sure your 8 weeks of experience will be a huge help. Oh, and a little advice. Pinnacle isn't the only contract you're about to lose. Anderson Construction is thinking about pulling out too. You might want to actually read those files I organized for you. You can't do this, she whispered. I already did. I turned to the room one last time. Monsieur Sullivan Architecture officially opens for business on Monday. You can find us at One Financial Center on the 40th floor. Jennifer Collins's law firm was nice enough to sublet us some space while we get started. Daniel Brooks came up next to me as I walked to the door. So should we talk about the Phase 2 expansion? He asked. After the press conference, I agreed. Dad's voice boomed from behind. Megan, you can't just walk out. I turned back at the door. I'm not walking out, Dad. I'm walking forward. There's a big difference. The last thing I saw before the door shut was Brooke still at the podium, her mouth just hanging open. No words were coming out, and a reporter from the Journal was asking her to spell Pinnacle for him. But the real kicker came 3 hours later when the market updated. Sullivan Development's stock was down 8% in after-hours trading, and that was only the start. By 6 p.m., the story was all over the news, daughter outplays dynasty. The Boston Business Journal ran with, the Sullivan reversal that shocked Boston business, and from caregiver to competitor Megan Sullivan's 3-year plan. Bloomberg's headline was, Family Feud Goes Public. Sullivan Development loses largest contract to disinherited daughter. The Wall Street Journal picked it up too. But the video clips were even worse for Dad. Someone got the exact moment he read my letter out loud. His confused face was blasted to 2 million viewers in 48 hours. And Brooks Software Company's screw-up, it became a meme. Pinnaclegate started trending locally. Jennifer called while I was watching it all go down from my apartment. Sullivan Development stock closed down 8%. The board's calling an emergency meeting for tomorrow. I asked, any legal threats? She said your father's lawyer called. I reminded him about the disinheritance papers you signed. He hung up pretty fast. My phone started blowing up with texts and emails. Old co-workers, friends from architecture school, even professors I hadn't talked to in years. But the one message that really mattered came from Daniel Brooks. Brilliant move. Tomorrow's press conference will lock it all in. Pinnacle's board is thrilled. We've gotten more good press in 6 hours than we did all last year. Then the other messages started rolling in. 3 people from Sullivan Development were asking about jobs. 2 contractors Dad had lowballed were offering to work with me. Even Kevin Anderson wrote, your father cost me $2 million back in 2019. I'd love to talk about an exclusive partnership with MSA. The Phoenix Community Center also posted on LinkedIn. We're proud to announce that our award-winning renovation was designed by Megan Sullivan of MSA Architecture. Sometimes the best talent is hiding in plain sight. By midnight, 16 other firms had posted something just like it. All my work that was supposed to be invisible was suddenly out there for everyone to see. But the only number I cared about showed up in my banking app. The first deposit from Pinnacle, $5 million. More than Dad ever thought I was worth in just one day. The dominoes were falling faster than even Jennifer predicted. Morrison Construction was the first to bail. Kevin Anderson's email hit my inbox at 8 a.m. Effective immediately. Morrison Anderson Construction is suspending all joint ventures with Sullivan Development pending a leadership review. Then came Harborside Properties. We had no idea Megan Sullivan designed our award-winning renovation. We'd like to discuss future projects directly with MSA. By noon, Dad was down 3 more clients. And it wasn't because of me. It was because of Brooke. She did this train wreck of an interview this morning where she mixed up commercial and residential zoning laws. The clip went viral in just a few hours. One developer commented publicly, she doesn't even know the basic rules. How's she supposed to run a development company? My assistant. Yep, I already had an assistant, stole her right from Sullivan Development, forwarded me the morning's messages. 12 potential clients, 8 job applications, and 3 partnership proposals. Miss Sullivan, she said Brooks' PR firm just dropped Sullivan Development. Turns out she hadn't paid their bill in 3 months. Then the Bloomberg reporter called for a follow-up. Megan Sullivan Development's market value has dropped 12% in 2 days. Any comment? I just said I'm focused on building MSA and taking care of my clients. I wish Sullivan Development the best. He replied, sources say 3 more employees are leaving to join you. We're always looking for great people. What I didn't tell him was that those 3 were the ones who'd actually been running Sullivan Development while Dad was recovering and Brooke was off in Paris. All of the company's real knowledge was walking out the door with them. Then Daniel Brooks texted Phase 2 approved. Another $20 million getting announced next week. That's $65 million in deals in 72 hours. Meanwhile, Sullivan Development's emergency board meeting had dragged on for 6 hours. Uncle James called me right after. Your father's lost it. He tried to blame you, said you sabotaged him. The board reminded him he cut you off on camera. The family picked sides faster than kids in a lunchroom. Aunt Patricia, who was just gushing about Brooks' business skills 3 days ago, left a voicemail. Megan, darling, I always knew you were the talented one. We should really do lunch. Delete. Uncle James was more direct. Your father's being impossible. The board wants Brooke out. She's a total liability. I'm ready to offer you a consulting contract to help get things back on track. I have a non-compete with my own company now, I shot back. Besides, I'm busy building something new. But the real shocker came from my mom's side of the family, the ones Dad had pushed away over the years. Your mother would be so proud, Aunt Jennifer said when she called. She always said you had her father's eye for design. Did you know he was an architect? Too before the war. I didn't know that. Dad had never said a thing. She saved everything you know, every single sketch you ever made. They're in a storage unit in Cambridge. She paid for it on the side so William wouldn't know. That afternoon I drove over there. Box after box of my childhood drawings, high school projects, my college work. And at the very bottom, a letter in my mom's handwriting. My darling Megan, if you're reading this, it means you finally found your voice. I've watched you make yourself small to make others comfortable. Stop it. Build something incredible. Love, Mom. The date on it was from 6 years ago, a year before she died. She'd known all along. She'd just been waiting for me to get it. That evening, my cousin Derek texted, Grandpa just called a family meeting. Says he's redoing his will. Apparently having a backbone is now a top requirement. So, thanks for that. But Dad still hadn't called. The silence was louder than any screaming match. 7 days of nothing. Then at 9 p.m. on a Thursday, my phone rang. Dad. Megan. His voice was stiff, all business. We need to discuss the situation. What situation would that be? Don't play dumb. The Pinnacle contract, the employees you poached, the clients you're stealing. I won a contract because I earned it. I hired people who came to me. Clients are making their own calls. I kept my voice even, just like his. This is still fixable. Come back to Sullivan Development. We'll create a job for you. Chief Design Officer, $700,000 a year. More than he'd ever paid anyone but himself. No? You're being emotional. I'm being practical. I have my own company, now my own contracts, my own future, which you built using Sullivan resources, which I built while I was saving your life. The words came out sharper than I meant. 3 years, Dad. 3 years of 18-hour days, and you decided it was worth $50,000. So dead silence. Then I said, if you want a meeting, we can talk about a partnership. Sullivan Development and MSA. But it's at my office, on my schedule. He sounded shocked. Your office? Yep. One Financial Center, 40th floor. I've got a great view of the harbor. You can even see the pavilion I designed right from my desk. More silence. Tuesday, 2 p.m. He finally grunted. Can't do Tuesday. I have a client presentation. How about Thursday at 4? I'm your father and I'm a CEO with a schedule. Thursday at 4, or we can try again next month. He hung up on me, didn't even say yes. But I knew he'd be there. His pride was shot, but he's still a businessman. He needed this meeting way more than I did. Jennifer texted me right away. Recording equipment is ready for Thursday. I replied, get every single word. Thursday at 3:58 p.m., my dad showed up alone. No lawyer, no Brooke. He just looked older. Like the last 10 days aged him more than his recovery ever did. My office was designed to be a power move. Awards on the walls. The Pinnacle contract framed the view was insane. I used every trick he taught me about power right back on him. Coffee, I offered. He just said, this is ridiculous, Megan. Meeting like we're strangers. I shot back. We are strangers. You made that clear when you decided my 3 years of work were worth less than your wine collection. He sank into the client chair. Another power move on my part. The board wants Brooke out, he said. That's not my problem. She's your sister. And who told me I wasn't cut out for this business 10 days ago? He leaned forward. What do you want? I don't want a thing from you. I have everything I need. Sullivan Development needs the Pinnacle connection. The market's not happy with your leadership choices. I shrugged. Again, not my problem. His jaw got tight. A partnership then, Sullivan Development and MSA, joint ventures. My terms are nothing. I slid a folder across the desk. A 50-50 profit split on any joint project. My company stays completely independent, no one from Sullivan Development looking over my shoulder. And Brooke has to get a 2-year business degree before she gets any kind of executive role. These terms aren't up for debate. You taught me that, remember, never negotiate from a weak spot. He read it, his face turning red. This puts you on equal footing with a 60-year-old company. No, it protects me from a 60-year-old company that just tanked 20% of its value because its CEO chose family favors over actual talent. You planned this, he accused. My plan was to be valued. When that didn't happen, I made a new plan. He stood up. I need to think about it. I told him, you have a week. After that, the terms get worse for you. He signed 3 days later. Not because he wanted to, but because the board forced his hand. The investors wanted someone stable. My Uncle James told me later. They want your stability. Brooke is chaos. It's simple math. We met again, this time with lawyers. Jennifer wrote up a contract that was airtight. I laid it out plain and simple, separate brands, separate operations. Sullivan Development and MSA can work together, but we stay independent. Agreed, my dad said through clenched teeth. And Brooke has no decision-making power until she graduates from an accredited business program. That's harsh, he said. It's generous. The board wanted her gone completely. He signed where Jennifer told him to. One more thing, I added. All our work is project-based. Either one of us can walk away after a project is finished. No long-term deals. You don't trust me. I learned that from you. You have to earn trust. It's not inherited. We both knew how ironic that was. But respect is non-negotiable, I said. In every meeting, every email, every public event, this is business. It's not family. We're business partners who share DNA, that's it. You drew that line when you said my work was worth $50,000. I'm just holding you to the boundaries you created. Brooke didn't come to the meeting either. I heard she was in New York exploring options, which meant hiding out because all of Boston business was making fun of her. Is there anything else? Dad asked. He sounded totally defeated. Yeah, Mom's storage unit in Cambridge. I want the key. He looked genuinely shocked. You know about that. I know she saved every single design I ever made. I know she believed in me when you didn't. I want what she left for me. He pulled a key out of his wallet. I never looked inside. I know. If you had, none of this would be a surprise. We shook hands real formal. No hug, no warmth, just business. Exactly what he taught me. By September, I was seeing the kind of success I only dreamed of during those long nights by his bed. MSA took up half the 40th floor. We had 12 employees and were still growing. We'd broken ground on the Pinnacle headquarters, and Phase 2 was approved for another $20 million. The Sustainable Design Award that Sullivan Development wanted for 5 years was sitting on my desk. Miss Sullivan, my assistant said, the Times is here. The New York Times was doing a piece on the new wave of architectural innovators. They'd called my dad's company first. He told them to talk to me. I guess that was progress. I was ready for this question. Family businesses are complicated. Sometimes the best move is to build something for yourself. Your father recently called you the future of Boston architecture. He's being generous, I said. What I didn't say was that it took him 6 months to see what everyone else saw in 6 minutes. 3 of my dad's best people worked for me now. They brought years of knowledge and a fresh eye. One of them, David, had been with Dad for 15 years. Why leave home? I'd asked him. Your father sees buildings as assets. You see them as places where life happens. I want to build for life. The Pinnacle building was already winning awards before we even broke ground. Our new patient care design was already being studied by 3 universities. Daniel Smith had already introduced me to 4 other biomedical CEOs. "You're building an empire," Jennifer said at our weekly lunch. "I'm building something better, a legacy that isn't about taking over." That afternoon, I hired my 13th employee, a young architect fresh out of Detroit. She'd been turned down by Sullivan Development for being too innovative. "Welcome to MSA," I told her. "Here, too innovative is just right." Thanksgiving was the real test. The first family get-together since March. Brooke was back from New York. She got into Wharton's executive MBA program. She looked different, humbled maybe. She was even helping set the table. "Megan," she said, her voice quiet, "I need to say I'm sorry. I waited too long. I didn't know what you really did for those 3 years. Dad made it sound like you were just around, but you were there every single day. I get that now. I've been going through the files. Your work is on everything. The Harborside project alone. I couldn't have handled that in perfect health, never mind while taking care of someone. It wasn't enough. But it was a start. I actually wanted to ask," she went on, "would you think about mentoring me, not out in the open? I know I totally burned that bridge, but privately. I really want to learn this business. Email me a proposal. What do you want to learn? How you're going to apply it, I'll think about it." Dad carved the turkey in silence. His moves were sharp, but he seemed shaky. Mom always ran the show at dinner. Her being gone felt even bigger this year. "The Pinnacle building looks amazing," Uncle James offered, trying to break the tension. "Megan's doing great work," Dad said stiffly. It sounded forced. "Thanks," I replied, matching his tone. But later, while we were clearing plates, he stopped me in the kitchen. "Your mother would be so proud," he said quietly. "I found some of her journals. She was always writing about your talent. I should have read them sooner. You should have seen it for yourself." "I know. I see it now. Because everyone else does." "No." He looked me in the eye for the first time in months. "Because I finally stopped looking at who I wanted you to be and saw who you are." It wasn't an apology, but he was admitting it. 1 year later, I was standing in the finished main hall of the Pinnacle headquarters. Sunlight poured through the new glass design that combined healing spaces with research labs. Daniel Brooks stood next to me with 300 guests for the opening ceremony. "This building," Daniel said into the microphone, "shows what's possible when talent gets a chance, when new ideas meet a real purpose." Dad was in the audience front row. He asked to be here. I said okay. My speech was short. The best inheritance isn't what you're given. It's what you build when you start with nothing. This building is here because sometimes the people who get overlooked see what others miss. Sometimes the invisible ones become impossible to ignore. Later, as guests walked around, a young architect came up to me. "Miss Sullivan, I'm in the same kind of spot with my family's company. They don't see my value. How did you find the courage?" "I didn't find courage. I found clarity. There's a big difference between being patient and being a pushover. Learn everything you can. Document everything you do. And when your moment comes, and you'll know when it does, choose yourself." The Boston Globe ran a story the next day. The Sullivan Legacy. How Megan Sullivan redefined success. But the moment that really mattered happened that evening. I went to Mom's grave. It's something I do after every big win. "I found my voice, Mom, just like you knew I would." The wind blew cherry blossoms across the cemetery. Her favorite. I planted that tree myself, paid for with my first MSA profit. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Dad. He put his flowers down next to mine. "She'd be proud," he said. "She was proud even when I ignored you. You were never invisible to her." "I know. That's what saved me." We stood there in silence, 2 successful CEOs who just happened to share DNA. In the end, you realize a legacy isn't what you leave. It's what other people build from the pieces you left. If Megan's story hit home, just remember your worth isn't up to the people who refuse to see it. It's built from the hard work you do when nobody's looking. Subscribe for more stories about quiet wins and getting what you deserve. Comment below with a time you stood up for yourself. And if you know somebody who really needs to hear this today, share this story with them. Sometimes the best revenge is just winning big.